There's a bird right outside my window that is like louder than any bird I've ever heard in my life, and I'm so distracted. I just wanted to say that so you know what's going on here. Hi, my name's Mark and welcome to the channel. Today I'm very excited to take you along with me for one of my favorite adventures, and that is the Yarn Discovery Tour, which takes place each year in northeastern Ohio. Cleveland, Ohio has been home to me for the last 5 years, and I'm not exaggerating when I say we have an incredible fiber arts community in this area. We have multiple knitting guilds, we have a spinning guild, and several local yarn shops. So every year in September, several of these local yarn shops sign up to take part in a local yarn shop crawl or tour. And this year we had 17 or 18 shops participating. Last year I went to all of the shops, so if you want to catch that video, if you missed it, you can find that here. And this year I'm taking you along with me to, I think, 8 or 9 shops total. So I didn't make it everywhere, but I'm going to see several yarn shops across different communities in northeastern Ohio and come home with something from every store. So if you're interested in spending some time with me, going on a little road trip and seeing what I end up with, then stick around and let's get into it. If you've been here before, you'll know that sometimes I talk and talk and talk. I never stop, and I could be talking about almost nothing. So today I'm aiming to stay focused and get us to each of these shops and do some shopping, do some window shopping, do some exploring, and come home with little bits from each shop I visit. So in front of me, I've got the starter kit for this year's Yarn Discovery Tour. Every year there's a passport that has the information on all of the participating shops. There's also some sort of bag or tote or pouch, something to go with the tour, a keepsake of sorts. With the purchase of my passport, I received this year's bag, and I also received the start of a progressive pattern. This year it was, I think, a new initiative that with each visit to a new shop in the tour, you would get a new block, a new pattern to add to a blanket or a bag or a scarf. So there are equal-sized blocks, equal-sized squares, both knit and crochet, and with each shop you visit you would receive a new page of that progressive pattern. So if you wanted, you could make a large project to kind of show every place you visited and to hold all of those memories of this year's tour. So I've got my bag, I've got my passport, and now we're ready to hit the road. First in the book, we've got Around the Table Yarns in Shaker Heights, Ohio. If you've been here before, you'll know this is my most local yarn shop, and it's where I work. So I actually didn't get my stamp there, but I purchase things almost every day that I work there. So I made a purchase during the tour. I just didn't stamp my book. Let's look at what I got from Around the Table. Because this is my local shop where I do most of my shopping, I ended up with a sweater quantity or a vest quantity of Why Not fibers in the line Social. I talked about this in some videos previously on the channel. This yarn comes from Kat of Why Not Fibers in Traverse City, Michigan, and it's a beautiful American-made, American-milled wool. This is a combination of 70% wool and 30% alpaca, and this color is Acorn. I think it's really beautiful. I worked it up with Thea Coleman's Oban vest. I really love the ropey cables. I really like the color. I'll put a picture in of me wearing it. I'm really happy with how it turned out. So that's my purchase from Around the Table Yarns. It's going to be the biggest purchase we'll see because it wasn't really a yarn crawl purchase. It was just one of my regular purchases for a pattern that I was ready to make. So that's what we've got first. I'm really grateful to have such a wonderful local yarn shop. I talk about it all the time here on the channel because it's probably the biggest reason that pushed me to start a YouTube channel. I learn so much every day that I'm there, whether I'm there as a customer or I'm there working. There are so many wonderful people in that community, so many brilliant people working on a huge range of projects. So every time I go into the store, I'm inspired to start something new, or I learn something from what other people are working on. So I'm extremely grateful to be in a place with such a strong fiber arts community, and I know it's rare, potentially rare for where you are and what your community looks like, for me to have so many stores to choose from. So I love the chance to visit all of the shops or many of the shops in my area, because you never know who you'll meet, what you'll find, and what you might be inspired to make next. So that's Around the Table Yarns, very close to my heart, the first stop on this year's tour. As I said, I wasn't able to make it to every shop on the tour this year. It takes a lot of time, a lot of planning, a lot of driving, and a lot of money for all of your purchases if you do 18 yarn stores, and if you do that every year. And you probably know, if you've been around on the channel for a while, that I try not to just buy yarn for the sake of expanding my stash. I try to de-stash regularly. If I know that I'm not going to use something and that it's just not in my future anymore, then I try to pass it along to somebody who will use it. I feel overwhelmed by having too many projects on my to-do list and having too much yarn staring me down from my pegboard here in this room. So I really try to be responsible with what I'm purchasing, making sure that it's something I'm going to use and something that I'm going to enjoy. So when I do something like this, when I travel and visit shops, if I'm taking part in a local yarn crawl, I don't buy everything that I might want to buy. One, I can't afford it. I'm on a tight budget. Two, I don't want stuff for the sake of stuff. I have a lot of stuff. I have a lot of tools. I love looking at stuff and hearing about other people's stuff, but I don't love the idea, and I don't want to push the idea of just buying things to buy things. I think we should be intentional with the things we purchase, and there are so many great things out there. As you'll see today, and as we've talked about and you already know, there's so much variety. And the reason there's so much variety is because all of these things appeal to different people. You have different projects, different preferences, you live in different climates. So that's my little announcement, my little soapbox to highlight why these purchases are very specific and why they're kind of small. It would be really fun to have a ton of money and to be able to walk into every store and spend hundreds of dollars on project quantities of yarn, but I can't afford to do that, and I also wouldn't be able to work through that yarn quickly enough. So let's get back on the road and head to our next stop. All right, we're here at Bare Naked Wools in Canton, Ohio, home of the Candy Apples Dance Center. I grew up watching Dance Moms, and if you've watched Dance Moms, you'll know that the Abbey Lee Dance Company is in Pittsburgh, and their rival, their sort of fictional rival for the sake of the show, for the sake of reality TV, was the Candy Apples Dance Center in Canton, Ohio. So I'm always excited to pass through Canton to be near the Candy Apples Dance Center. All right, so we're here at Bare Naked Wools. If you watched last year's video, you'll know that this shop is very unique because the yarn here is undyed. It is naked, bare naked, like they say in their shop name. So there's a huge variety of wool and various animal fibers, beautiful blends, all sorts of things that I have never heard of and never worked with. And you'll see quite a range of colors, even though these are all undyed, natural shades of the animals themselves. You can get a huge range. So it's a beautiful shop. It's pretty different from a lot of the stores that I get to visit and experience in my day-to-day life. And last year, a lot of you said that this shop was maybe the most intriguing, the place you would want to visit because it was so different from the explosion of color you'll see in a lot of yarn stores. Here I picked up two small items, the first of which is a really beautiful stitch marker. They advertised on social media that they had like over 2 dozen dog breeds in these beautiful enamel stitch markers. And so when I got there, I looked at the examples and I asked Ann Hansen, the great designer Ann Hansen, who owns Bare Naked Wools, if they had a corgi, if they had any corgis left in stock. And she pulled one out for me, and I think it's really precious. So this is the beginning of round for my Numi sweater that's back on the needles right now. I think it's adorable. It looks similar enough to Mabel, so I was very excited for that unique item to use. And the other purchase is their custom colorway for the tour. As I mentioned, all of the yarn in the store is undyed except for this custom colorway that they're featuring for the tour this year. And I just thought it was really beautiful. It's from Feederbrook Farm, hand dyed. I think it's got just a gorgeous combination of colors, and the yarn looks incredible. It looks bouncy and springy, and I just got the one skein because I think this would make a beautiful hat, a beautiful little scarf. I'll probably do something like a Sophie scarf. Don't get mad. I like to make them as I travel. I think they're easy to throw on and wear. They're functional for my life. So that was my purchase there. This beautiful custom colorway and my corgi stitch marker. Alright, here we are at Black Locust Farm in Lodi, Ohio. This is one of my favorite shops. I talked about it in last year's video. I think it's such a beautiful, unique building right in the main square of their downtown, and they've got all sorts of yarn, all sorts of things to explore. It's a pretty large store, so I like places like this because I get to wander around and almost get lost in what they have. So I didn't go into this tour with any specific projects in mind. Rather, I thought I would let the notions or the yarn speak to me. If there was something I found that I hadn't worked with before or hadn't seen in person, then it might be a good chance to test it, to do sort of a taste test. So at a couple of these stores, I picked up yarn that I'll do swatches with. I'm a big swatcher. The further I get in my knitting journey, the more I swatch. And I've started to swatch things just for daydreaming, to see how a fiber behaves, to see what certain textures and patterns are like, paired with certain yarns and needles, and then I use that to help me make my decisions for future dream projects. So from Black Locust, I picked up this skein of Juniper Moon Rambouillet, and I haven't used anything from Juniper Moon before. I often see the brand and get to look at the yarns when I'm traveling. I see a lot of it in warmer climates. I see a lot of their cottons and I guess plant fiber blends, but this was a nice option because I haven't worked with this. I don't know that I've really done a project with a lot of Rambouillet, and it's a nice sort of navy blue. I'm a big navy person. This color is called Peacock. So I'm dreaming of a navy sweater in my future. So you'll see from another shop later on, I purchased a skein of navy to swatch with. So that's our purchase here. Juniper Moon Farm, Rambouillet. I can't remember. I think this is a DK weight in the color Peacock. Nice and bouncy. I think a beautiful color. So we'll see what happens with a little bit of swatching. right, we've made it to the west side of Cleveland to Cast On Yarn Studio in Vermilion, Ohio. Cast On is a boutique yarn shop. They carry lots of European brands, lots of notions, lots of beautiful gifts, and I always enjoy stopping in because they carry a lot of things that I don't see normally at my local yarn shop or in my travels. I visited this store with Megan and with my husband, Ned, so I ended up with several items, and that's because Ned was very kind to try to surprise me with some things that he picked out while we shopped at Cast On, which is very sweet. I'm very lucky. My purchase that I knew I wanted to make a cast on was this skein of Corey worsted from La Bien-Aimée. I've never worked with this yarn. I've used some of the DK weight superwash from La Bien-Aimée. I've never used the Corey worsted, and when I was at Cast On previously, I was sort of drooling over it. I was feeling it. I was looking at the colors, and I just thought, this looks really dreamy, like something I would love to use for a future sweater. It's kind of an expensive yarn. It's on the top end of anything I ever buy. So I'm going to save it for like the perfect project, something that I know I'll really appreciate it in. But I got a skein for swatching. So I loved this color. This isn't the color that I would make my future sweater out of. They actually have a really beautiful navy that I think would be my choice. But for swatching, for seeing the stitches, for taking lots of measurements, I thought I'll go with a lighter color. And I thought this shade was really beautiful, really striking. There's a bird right outside my window that is like louder than any bird I've ever heard in my life, and I feel like you'll probably still be able to hear it even once I do my little noise canceling to this audio. I'm so distracted. I just wanted to say that so you know what's going on here. Here it is, Corey worsted. This is 75% Falkland Corriedale and 25% Gotland wool. Gotland? I don't know. Beautiful. 100 grams, 250 yards. It's a lovely, lovely fiber. It's got a halo. Can you see this halo going on? The color has beautiful dimension to it. I've heard great things. People love it. So I'm excited to try it, and very excited one day when the time is right to do my full sweater, probably out of the navy from Corey worsted. So that was my choice. That's what I wanted to take away from Cast On. And then as we were looking, I saw some Emma Ball washi tape, and I love Emma Ball. I've got some of her coasters and a notepad and a project bag, a lot of her stitch markers. I had never seen her washi tape. I thought this was adorable. So we've got all of these puffins in a roll of washi tape. And it was $3. I thought, wow, $3 for a nice functional notion. I think that's a good deal. Then for the gifts. I always see these online. I think this is from the company, yes, from Dajan. And it's just cute. I mean, it's not a necessity. That's why this was a gift. It wasn't my own purchase. These are the kind of things that I see that I sometimes think, oh, I want this, but it's not a necessity. I have plenty of tape measures. I can't always justify spending that much money on another notion that's a duplicate of something I already have. But I think things like that make for very good gifts. So if you have crafters in your life, if you stumbled upon this video and you're not a crafter, but you love a crafter, get them some nice notions. So maybe the things that they wouldn't budget for themselves, they wouldn't want to get for themselves because maybe it's not a total necessity, but it's something functional that they would use and enjoy. So lovely gift from my lovely husband. And the gifts keep coming. He got me this, which is beautiful. I don't know much about it. Glina, handmade porcelain. Really charming. Very pretty. This cup, this dish. Beautiful. Very sweet. And then a magnet. I thought this magnet was precious. Ned said it reminded him of our time in the UK last year. We had a lot of fish and chips and we saw a lot of seagulls. So this is our little keepsake now, a memory reminder of the trip. And then the last thing from Cast On was a little gifty that Brenda, the owner, was giving everybody on the tour. And it's a little fish stitch marker. They're right on Lake Erie. And after we visited the shop, we drove just down the road, probably less than a mile, parked our car, and walked to the water. And it was a beautiful day. A lot of people were at the beach. We thought, oh, we should have brought our projects so we could sit right by the water and craft for a bit because it was really, really beautiful. So that's the visit to Cast On. I came away with more items than I would have had if I were there on my own, which is nice. I'm very lucky. So let's hit the road and head to the next shop. Next up is For You, an inclusive fiber community in Oberlin, Ohio. Now, Oberlin always makes me think of being an undergraduate music student at Westminster Choir College in Princeton, New Jersey, because as I was there as an undergrad, 18-year-old Mark, we had the most talented graduate students coming in from Oberlin. They would graduate from Oberlin with their voice degrees and then come over to Westminster to study with one of the professors there, and they were all so talented, such good singers, so well trained, professional, kind, hardworking. So anytime I think of Oberlin, now that I live in this area, I just think of these wonderful music students from the conservatory. So we headed to Oberlin on an evening, a Wednesday evening, and we thought we would do our yarn shopping and visit their knit night, which has been a new thing I've wanted to do. Because I'm in such a hub for fiber arts, several of the shops, even the guilds, and groups that have just started on their own do stitching days, knit nights, and different get-togethers where they bring their projects and they'll craft for a couple of hours. And that's my favorite thing. That's what I do at my local yarn shop when I'm there as a customer or when I'm working, and it's what we do virtually when we Zoom together or we sit and we watch these YouTube videos. So I thought, why not? I don't know what the future holds and what my communities will look like in the future. I might end up where I don't have a lot of people around me who are crafting. So while this is my home, while this is my community, I should take advantage of that. So I've been trying to go to some of these knit nights, these stitching get-togethers to invest more in the people around me. I think it's a really cool thing to get to do. So that's what we did at For You. We went to their knit night. It was a beautiful evening. The drive to Oberlin is really gorgeous. I haven't spent much time there. So we got together with our friend Sue. We crafted, we shopped, and then we had a really nice dinner. So it was a great evening. And I think it makes a yarn crawl or a yarn tour even more vibrant, even more fun if you can do it with a friend, if you can make the excuse to do something else along the way, because you're just soaking up everything your community has to offer. So let's look at what I ended up with. As you'll know from a lot of my projects, a lot of my other videos, I'm a huge fan of Kelborn woolens. My sheep sweater is made out of Scout from Kelborn woolens. I've never used their Lucky tweed. I've made projects out of Cricket, which is their tweed and a sport weight, but I've always wanted to try Lucky Tweed, which I believe is a worsted weight. So 100% merino wool, 210 yards and 100 grams. And this is color Ocean 426. I think it's beautiful. I love tweed. I feel like this yarn is one that's quite robust, that would stand up well in a pattern. So Again, this is for swatching. I don't have a project picked out. I've never used this yarn. It's something I've seen online. I've seen pictures of people's projects, but I think until you really feel a yarn, until it's running through your fingers, until you're crocheting it or knitting it, you don't know what it's going to work well for. Even if a designer says, I used this yarn for the project, you don't know if you're going to love the feel or the drape or how it fits. So I like to find things to actually touch them, see the colors, and experience them before diving into a project. So I've got this skein for a bit of swatching, and it will lead me one day to a full-blown project, a full-blown garment out of Lucky Tweed. So I'm excited to work with that. I think on the tour, maybe last year, if not last year, 2 years ago, I picked up some tags like this that say, this is the back. They're meant for you to sew into the back of the sweaters you make, which I think is really funny and also very helpful, very functional. The other set I have are in black. So I picked these up in a cream so that I can add them to more of my sweaters. Some sweaters and some vests that I've made have a clear front and back because of the neck depth or the pattern. But I have several that I have to stare at for 10, 20 seconds before I put them on to make sure I'm putting them on the correct way. So I like these tags. I think they're also nice to put into gifts if you make garments for other people and you want them to be wearing them the right way and they might not be able to tell. Or if it's something that's kind of reversible but still has a design element that should be on the front, I think these are great. So those are my purchases. Again, small, modest. I'm trying not to bite off more than I can chew. I'm excited to be able to swatch, experience this yarn, and then when I'm ready, I can go back and I can get my project quantity from the same shop, which I think is also a good reason to always pop into a local yarn shop. Even if you don't have the budget, even if you don't have a project in mind, pop in, walk through, meet the people there, and you never know what you might find, what you might fall in love with that could lead to something in your future. So that's for you. I'm doing my little stretch as we are halfway through. It feels funny to sit down and film shop after shop after shop, but in real time as I was visiting these shops, it was really spread out. The tour lasts for 3 weeks and I only visited 7 or 8 stores. So across those 3 weeks, I was going to, 2 or 3 stores a week, which was very manageable. It was easy to do on a day off or a morning off, and it was nice to get outside, start to see the changing leaves in September here in the area. So in real life, this was a very peaceful, relaxed tour. Last year when I did the tour, I went to all of the shops and I only had 3 days to do it, which was kind of insane. I don't know how it happened. I was going to 6 shops a day and they are spread out. If you're trying to make it to all the shops, especially if you have limited time, you have to be very strategic. There are great resources within the Yarn Discovery Tour. They put together a map to show you the most efficient route to get to all the stores. They also break it down to say if you only have 3 hours and you're on the west side, you can do this pocket of stores, and here's a good map to follow, which is really helpful. Other things to mention, with your purchase at each store, you are entered into a raffle. Each shop has their own prize basket, and there's also a overall prize basket that all of the shops contribute to, and the people that visit every shop are entered into that drawing. So you're entered into drawings for every shop you visit. You're also given free patterns. Every shop features a knit pattern and a crochet pattern. Some of the shops feature a Tunisian crochet pattern, and with your purchase, you get to choose one of those patterns as a gift. So it's not just your everyday yarn shopping. You're getting to take part in raffles and drawings and freebies. Fun swag, fun things to commemorate that year's tour. All right, next we have Gwen Erin Natural Fibers in Hubbard, Ohio. On this day of my yarn touring, I took Mabel with me. She's wonderful in the car, she's great company, so we went to, I think, 3 towns, and in each town we would arrive, we'd go on a nice walk to explore the town, explore the area where their yarn shop was, and then we'd do a little yarn shopping and move on with our day. So that was fun. She was great company. Gwen Erin Natural Fibers is one of the 2 stores that are furthest from me, so I don't really get to pop into these stores anytime during the year besides the Yarn Discovery Tour, because it's far from me. It's about an hour and a half. So this was the furthest point on the tour that I explored, and it's a beautiful shop. It's a great community. Gwen Erin dyes her own line of yarns, so she has yarn, roving, needle felting supplies, some things that are very unique that you'll only find there. And I think last year was my first time visiting the shop. So I think every year that I'm able to do the tour, I'll make the trip. Even if I'm not going to all of the stores, I'll want to get to go to the stores that that aren't in my usual rotation, because it's a nice chance to see the owner, see some of the community, and get to do a little bit of shopping, or at least window shopping. All right, brace yourself for my purchase here. Some of you will be very excited. Other people will be like, Mark, you're crazy. You don't even do that. This was my purchase. To be honest, one reason I purchased this is because it's so pretty, and this feels so vapid and shallow, but I thought this will look great hanging behind me on my pegboard over there, and it will. But I am excited to dive deeper into my spinning journey. So far, I've only done a little bit of spinning with a drop spindle, but as I said, we have a lot of spinners in this community. Some of my colleagues at Around the Table Yarns are great, great, great spinners, and if you breathe a word about your interest in spinning, they will hear you, and they will encourage you and give you the tools to get started and get hooked. So the time is not right now, but maybe the time will be soon that I want to dive further into my spinning life, and I'll practice, I'll explore different wheels and more drop spindle spinning, and gain a lot of knowledge from the people around me. And when the time comes, I have this beautiful, beautiful dyed roving that I'll get to spin. So let's take a look. It makes me think of mermaids. Just beautiful. Let's look at the details. This is Polworth and Silk, hand-dyed fiber for spinning and felting. 80% organic wool and 20% cultivated silk. 8 ounces of combed top. I think this is stunning. So again, this is some of Gwen Erin's own. I think it's gorgeous. And it's tempting to see this in a store. I was like, oh, is this a crazy purchase? I don't think it is. As I said, I don't want to buy things that I'm not going to use, so I don't like to get a random single skein unless I have a plan. So the single skeins you've seen me purchase, I either have the pattern already picked, or it's for swatching because I know I'd like to use that yarn and I want to experience it and really get an idea of what I should use it for. So I think this is a good purchase. It's going to hang out and be beautiful on my pegboard behind me, and then when the time comes, I think I'll really love spinning it, and it's going to bring back the memories of this tour, and everything that's going on in my life right now, which I think is such a cool part of our crafting, that the things going on in our lives get stitched into whatever we're making. Very cool. So that's that, my purchase from Gwen Erin in Hubbard, Ohio. right, next up we've got River Colors. River Colors is on the west side, closer to downtown Cleveland, not quite as far over as Vermilion, and River Colors is another large yarn store. They carry a huge variety of fiber. They've got yarn from all over the world in all different fiber contents. There's a huge range of woolly wools, lots of silky, soft, delicate things, and then a lot of plant fibers, a ton of cotton, all sorts of things, which is really nice. You can walk through and really explore the samples, the fiber, and find anything. River Colors is also next door to a fantastic bakery, Blackbird. So when I go, it's nice to be able to pop into the bakery, grab something, sit, do a little bit of knitting before or after some yarn browsing. That's very hard to beat. So at River Colors, I picked up a little bit of yarn for swatching. When I went to Shetland last summer, I came home with 3 sweater quantities, 3 project quantities of Jamieson's of Shetland. But I didn't purchase any extra. So I got what's needed for the projects I picked, but I don't have any carryover, and before I dive into those projects, I need to do my swatching. I need to do my swatching to really check the needle size that I'll use, to get the measurements so that I'm not making a large Fair Isle garment that's going to be too small or way too big. So I thought, okay, I should pick up 2 skeins of Jamieson's that I can use for swatching. So this is what I came home with. There's not a lot of contrast here, but that's okay. This isn't for a project. I thought these shades were warm and autumnal. I'm going to do a little 2-color stranded swatch, probably just little stripes or diamonds, big enough to really get my measurement. I'll do it on a couple of different needle sizes to find the perfect fit for me, and that'll be that. It'll help me dive into those projects from my Shetland trip. So that's my very functional, appropriate, responsible purchase. And then another small purchase was a set of Emma Ball stitch markers. We've talked about her already in this video. I love Emma Ball. And I thought these were very hard to pass up. They're cats and hats. And we've got my cats right there. We've got Gus, the orange, and then Scout, our little tuxedo. So I just thought these were precious. I also like that they are, I don't know what they're made of, some sort of metal. They're nice, pretty. I don't love novelty stitch markers. I really like a very utilitarian functional stitch marker. The Coco Knits rings and triangles are my favorites because they're small, they fit closely to the needle size I'm using, and I can use the colors to tell me what I need for the pattern, the project I'm working on. But something like this is just so precious, and because it aligns with something in my personal life, you know, these cats look like my cats, and I love cats and I love knitting. So for $10, for me, that seems like a very reasonable no-brainer purchase. So that was our little haul from River Colors. Let's head out to our final 2 shops. Next up, we've got the Artful Yarn in Chagrin Falls, Ohio. Chagrin Falls is another really beautiful suburb of Cleveland. I think that's one of my favorite parts of exploring so many different parts of northeastern Ohio during the yarn crawl is I get to visit these different cities, go through these communities. The drives are usually really beautiful. And because I had Mabel with me for some of the visits, it was really nice to be able to walk through the town squares or explore a nearby park. So that's what we did to start our time in Chagrin Falls. Just a beautiful place. And then we headed inside the Artful Yarn. As I mentioned, I went into these stores without much of a plan. I just wanted to browse and see what would strike me as something that I would like to have in my life. And here I ended up, it feels very repetitive at this point, with an Emma Ball product. But it's not for me, I promise. It's for my mom. So this is one of Emma Ball's tote bags. Just precious. Check it out. Look at these puffins. My mother is traveling with me to Shetland. We're taking a trip together next year, and she's never been there. She's been to Scotland, but she hasn't been all the way up to Shetland. She's never seen a puffin. I've never seen a puffin. And we'll be there potentially in puffin season. So I'm hoping we might see a puffin. So this is like a precursor, a pre-souvenir that I thought I'll be able to give my mom. She's going to see this video before it gets to her, so the surprise is ruined. But I think when I mail her her sweater that I've been making, I'll mail it in this bag. So she'll get a nice little gifty bundle, and then I'm going to have her try the sweater on and FaceTime me so I can make sure that it fits and just get that worry off of my shoulders. Anyway, this was my purchase at the Artful Yarn. I think very cute, a functional bag for my mom who doesn't have knitting and fiber related accessories. This will not be overkill. She'll be able to put it to good use. It'll be something unique and different in her life. So that's that. And now let's get back on the road and head to the final shop of this year's Yarn Discovery Tour. All right, here we are at Three Sheep Gallery and Workshop in Boardman, Ohio. Now, I'm not here to play favorites, but at the same time, this is my video and my channel. It's all something I made up on my own. So I will say this is one of my absolute favorite yarn shops that I've ever visited. And this is the other location that is pretty far from where I live, so I don't make it out there at any other point in the year. And I have plans to go visit for another project, something fun that I'm excited to explore and share with you here on the channel. But I just love getting to visit this shop. Linda has created a beautiful space. I mean, I just think it's so balanced. It's peaceful. When you walk in, you can focus on what's there. It's a really attractive, calming space. And there's a good bit of variety. It's not a yarn shop that aims to provide everything to everyone. It's another sort of boutique style shop and workspace that focuses on weaving. So there are floor looms, a lot of fibers on cones for weaving, a large workspace in the back half of the shop, and then a lot of yarn for knitting and crochet. So there is something for everyone, but they do focus on weaving. And I think that's really interesting. In the 2 times that I visited this shop, I've had 5 or 10 minutes to sit and visit with Linda, the owner, and I just feel like, I don't know, we're very similar in certain ways, and there are people that you meet, people you come across, and you feel very comfortable. You feel comfortable talking with them, like yeah, we're on the same page with whatever it is you're talking about. So that was an added bonus. I think it's nice to run into people where you feel like you want to spend more time with them. You want to be part of their community. So if you're anywhere near Boardman or passing through, or you have a reason to go, it's my recommendation, my highest recommendation, that I think you should. You should check it out. So let's go back to the purchase. What beautiful, sweet packaging. And how charming is this? If you've been with me before for some of my yarn shopping, you'll know I'm a big fan of items in a yarn shop that are not fiber. Last year on the tour, my goal was to get notions, to really stock my notions from all of the stores that I visited. And this year, I didn't have that same aim, but you'll see I came away from a few of the shops with non-fiber options. And if it's something that I'm excited about, that I think I have a place for, that I'll use, then I think it's a really great purchase. I'd rather get something like this that I know I'll use in my day-to-day life than a random bit of yarn that I might never get to. This is handmade, hand-painted. The same artist does buttons, and I saw some of these buttons at a different store last year on the tour, and then again at Three Sheep on this tour, and I thought, that's nice. Ceramic buttons that I could use on a future project. And before we leave Three Sheep, Linda was talking to me about an upcoming trip they have with their shop community. And when we talked about 2 or 3 weeks ago now, there were a couple of slots remaining. So I said I would be happy to mention it here on the channel in case anybody out there might want to join in. And by the time you're watching this, it might be full, but if it's interesting to you, go check it out just in case. This is a knitting tour to Alaska. It's a luxury knitting adventure, May 12th to 24th, 2026, and it's 5 nights on land, 7 nights on a cruise. 7 nights of the trip are spent on a glacier cruise. The trip portion on land includes a trip to Denali National Park and a Kiviat adventure, where you're going to work with Kiviat and I don't know, see the animals themselves and explore that tradition, that luxury fiber. To me, it sounds really exciting. And before I went to the shop, I was on their website and I saw the trip advertised, and I checked my calendar because I thought, is there any way I can swing this? But I've got concerts booked during the stretch of the trip, but it sounds really special. So if you're someone out there that wants to check out that trip or just keep this shop and the community on your radar for future knitting adventures, then please do. All right, let's pack everything up and then we'll have our final thoughts on this year's Yarn Discovery Tour. I appreciate you joining me for this video, and I hope you've enjoyed seeing some of the local yarn shops that are in my community, in my area. I love the idea of a yarn crawl, of the push, the reason to get out and go to other shops. Maybe go somewhere you've never gone. You might be watching this video and you may have never shopped at a local yarn shop. You might do all of your shopping online. You might do big box stores. So check out your area. See if there might be a shop around. And I'll say, to be completely transparent, you may go to a local yarn shop and find that it's not for you, that specific shop. And all shops are not created equal. Like any small business, people get to choose what they want to offer, how they want to run a business, what the vibe, what the community might feel like, which is why it's great that we have so much variety. So your local yarn shop, the shop that you love and the shop that you feel like you belong to, might not be geographically the most local to you, but there's a lot of great stuff out there to explore. So I urge you, when you're traveling, if you've never explored your own area, pull up your map and search for yarn shops and see what you find, and give them a visit and see what you might experience. The Yarn Discovery Tour in Northeastern Ohio has been going on for over 10 years, I think maybe even over 15 years, and I know a lot of hard work goes into it, so I offer my biggest thanks to all of the shop owners, everyone that takes on that extra effort, all of that extra work to put this together year after year. I think people benefit from it majorly. It's an excuse, like I said, to go to a shop that you've never visited before, and it even draws in people from out of town. When I was working at Around the Table Yarns during the tour, we had a lot of people come in, several, that were visiting. They drove in from states away, spent a few nights to visit all of the stores. And I thought, that's some major dedication. And that's something I want to do in the future. I eventually want to do sort of like a cross-country yarn adventure that spans years. And during the day, I'll knit and take turns driving, and then I'll buy all the yarn in the world. It's not feasible, but it's a nice daydream. I hope that as you watch, you are almost as excited as I am about all of this yarn and everything that I ramble on about on the channel. I think it's great stuff to talk about. It's a great hobby for some, but for a lot of us, it's a lifestyle. It's a bigger part of who we are, and I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing. If you love the idea of the Yarn Discovery Tour and you don't have your own local yarn crawl, or you loved seeing some of these shops, you can take part online. Next year when the tour starts, you can buy your passport online and you can visit the shops virtually. And I think all of them participate that way. You can find items through their website and you can make a purchase. You can get the patterns, you can be entered into the drawings, and even though you're not physically walking through the shops, if you don't have shops of your own or you just want to take part, you can do it that way. So something to consider for next time. As always, I'm very grateful that you've chosen to spend this time with me here on the channel. Please let me know your thoughts. Let me know your favorite stores you saw in today's video, maybe your favorite items that you saw, or what your tactic would be for a local yarn crawl. What would you purchase? Would you pick your patterns first? What would your budget be? I'd love to hear how you approach these kind of things. And if you want to spend more time with me, you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry at MakerMarkKnits. You can also find me over on Patreon, and I'll put the upcoming Zoom dates here on the screen. We get together about 4 times a month and we Zoom. We have a virtual crafting time, we tell stories, we laugh, we show our projects, we ask questions, and we all get to know each other even better. So if you're interested in joining us, you can find information about how to do that in the description box below. As always, I'm very glad to see you here today. Happy knitting, happy crocheting, happy crafting to you, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye!